Hey, Julie, how are you?
I'm doing well, Joel. As good as I can be helping all these clients with the COVID situation.
Yes, and we're here on a very special episode of Career Lab, and we are having this episode just to take a little break from our normal pattern of having callers come in and help them with their career development, matriculation, and other aspects of their jobs, and also the guests we have on the show, just so we can allow America's career counselor and our star, our rock star, Julie LaCroix, and I to talk a little bit about what's happening, because we know that this is top of mind for everybody. This is what's trending. We're coming out of a pandemic, and many, many people are losing, changing, or having to move from one job to another. Some jobs aren't coming back. Some jobs are being modified, and some jobs are going to change permanently forever in the way they work. So we know, we've heard from so many of you that you're thinking about this and talking about this, in some cases worrying about it and trying to react to it. So we thought we'd do just a little talk about that this morning. And so, Julie, why don't you start us off and tell us what you've been hearing about employment trends and other trends industry-wide?
Sure. So it's really easy to watch TV and read the news, the press releases about unemployment numbers and whatnot, and that's a big part of how I track the market. But I also primarily track by doing just my own business every day. I listen to who's calling me for an interview, who's calling me because they just got laid off, who's realizing that a merger is going to happen, or layoffs are pending, or salaries were frozen. And so I do get some feet on the street information that I do like to piece together to try to give my clients a constant mirror image of what's going on in the job market as far as what I'm seeing in my practice. So, just remember that job markets do fluctuate. They are like any other market. Sometimes you go to the store and there are lots of avocados on sale for 99 cents a piece. And sometimes you go to the market and they're $4.99 hard as a rock and only a few left. And that's just because they haven't been restocked and they haven't been delivered. The market is slow. The market is off. So every market changes. Some weekends you go around your neighborhood and there's a ton of open houses. 2 months later, there may be one open house. Clothes are on sale. They're not on sale. Markdowns happen. Markups happen. So every market has market action, and so does the job market. It's no different. The market action that drives the job market is no different. Now, there is a huge bucket of water that's been put on the job market, but it does, just because you're seeing those numbers doesn't necessarily mean that it's happening to your industry, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's happening to you. So don't over panic, because I'm actually seeing enough stabilization and hiring to help people stabilize their fear of getting fired and move forward. So there actually is some movement in the job market. So if you're in a high touch industry like food service, one-on-one healthcare, where you're actually touching the customer, or retail, that's going to be impacted significantly. The lower touch industries are not, they're having some plateau, but I'm seeing a lot of hiring. So Joel, I'd like to hear what you're hearing, and then maybe lead our listeners to some tools, some resources. Here are some things you can be doing, and then here are some resources you can be utilizing.
Yeah, good. Well, you can certainly give a lot of employment resources. I mean, I think I would agree with you, Julie, in general. Obviously, high-touch employment is taking a giant hit, and let's not make any bones about it. I don't think our listeners will be happy if we try to sugarcoat it. A lot of high-touch employment is going away, or it's changing.
Right.
And so, Pete, you're going to need to pivot. Now, the good news about that, or at least to some degree good news, is, Julie and I are going to be talking about this in future segments. No, we are not going to leave you behind. Everyone who needs to pivot, this is what Career Lab is going to be focusing on in part in episodes throughout this year. So we will be talking about, nobody I know in this world has more resources than Julie. And so we'll be talking about this stuff, and we'll be trying to help people just like you who needed to pivot and need to pivot and are not sure how to pivot and where to pivot to. That's what we're going to try to help you with. Mm-hmm. Julie and I have big plans in this area. So stay tuned to Career Lab, because we will help you with this stuff, won't we, Julie?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think it's important for everybody to know that. And in terms of pivoting and getting ready, I mean, I think the one biggest change that we're seeing with everything and with work in general is that so much has migrated to a digital platform. And I've been working with some companies who are hiring, and all the hiring is now via Zoom interviews, is all digital. Nobody's going anywhere, that is, unless you actually get hired and until you start work. And even when you start work, sometimes you're working remotely anyhow. So one of the things you need to do is if you are having an interview, and many of you are, you need to make sure that your presentation on Zoom is good. It's funny, I'm on Zoom a whole lot with my clients, and you are too, Julie, with all of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also in my networking groups, and I'm surprised how many people don't really take the time to prepare their Zoom presentation. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell you how to do that real quickly, like in 2 minutes, okay? What you need to
Let's
do,
do it.
obviously, there are some stock backgrounds. I have people who appear like they're on the top of Mount Fuji and, in San Francisco and in other great places. But if you're not going to use that kind of a background, and really that's usually probably not the best thing to do, what you need to do is prepare your either office or home environment so that it looks professional. You do not want your dog or your, chair with your clothes and your underwear hanging over it to be in the Zoom shot. You do want a lot of light in the Zoom shot because a lot of people are underlit. And you do that by making sure you're in a room where there is a lot of natural light and by adding some artificial light as well. You want to make sure you have a background. A lot of people formulate their Zoom shot so that it's just one giant face right there. And that's not the best either. You want to back up and allow people to see you in your natural setting, have it be professional, and you will come across so much better if you do that. So there's my tip, Julie. You want to add something?
Absolutely. Building on that, Joel. Remote work is not going away. It is here to stay, people. It is here to stay. They did a huge survey. 54% of American workers want to work from home. And then in one large company, in one large industry, I was able to hear some data that 98% of that company's workforce, a workforce of over 10,000 individuals, wanted to stay remote. And that was not necessarily due to COVID, that was post COVID, post pandemic. So the people have spoken and companies will have to adjust. And so get ready to be a remote worker and have remote worker skills. We had another episode with Patrick and the HR representative who helped us a lot with exactly what remote working skills are. And we would encourage you to go back and listen to that. We don't have to kind of rehash that here, but there's some really, really good, thoughtful insights into how to present yourself as a skilled remote worker, not just a skilled worker. And so it's a little bit different there. You really need to pick up, that's part of your pivot, is learning how to be a remote worker and learning how to present yourself as a remote worker. Do exactly what Joel said. Take the time, take a half a day, take a full day, paint a wall, put in a chair, get a plant, get your lighting right, go to Target, pick it up, get a desk, get yourself a place in your home where your family can move and adjust for you to create the space that you need. It's just not going away. So you have to pivot directly to that. That's one of the first things you can do. And it's going to make you look better as a candidate as well, or just as an employee.
I agree. So a couple more things we want to talk about on this episode, or just want to mention real briefly in this special episode. We know a lot of you are thinking about, well, what do I do in terms of my skills and how do I assess in a pivot what I'm really good at and what I really want to do? And maybe I want to change a little bit, or maybe I don't. And that's what we're going to be talking about in episodes to come. You're on board with one of the great experts in understanding how to understand a person's skills and where they need to go with those. And that person is Julie LaCroix. And so we're going to be listening to her over the episodes in coming weeks and talking about that kind of stuff. So you're going to be getting specific input about how to do that. So we want you to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and transferable skills are the name of that game. And a transferable skill is really defined as a skill that you can pull out of its work context and transfer it to another work context, like teaching. Well, if you can teach how to use a telephone, then you can teach how to use a coffee maker. Teaching is teaching. It's a universal skill set. That's a transferable skill set. That's just one very simple example. So be thinking in your pivot about what your what your transferable skills are. And when you do that, the way to approach that is to think of the tasks at work that you've really enjoyed the most and felt the most competent doing. Those are the two qualifiers. How well do I do it and how much do I like it? And if those two levels are both very high in skill and interest, then you know that you've got a really strong transferable skill. And so that's definitely one of the other keys to any kind of pivot that anybody is doing. And then, Joel, I just wanted to mention some resources. Is this a good time for that?
Sure.
Okay, so I obviously, Joel and I put together a lot of resources for you guys and always try to illuminate those. But the careerlabnow.com website is full of resources. There's curriculum, there's a transferable skills mini course, there's all sorts of stuff that's inexpensive and easy to get and easy to do. And you can work through these things in an hour or two or three, depending on the complexity of it. Go ahead and get yourself some of the resources that Joel and I have out there. But separately, get smart, okay? Use your local thought leaders to bring you the information that you need to survive this pandemic. Your local business council you may not even know you have a local business council, but you do in your regional area, and you need to get on their email distribution list. The business councils are putting out a very robust daily or a couple day or once a week email to local residents on all sorts of resources, from unemployment in your state to SBA options for the small businesses and sole props out there, to food pantries, to special things that are going on with kind of, local leaders, to city funding. I know that our local area was just given a stimulus in their city for cities to give out a little bit of stimulus to small businesses. That's not hitting the newswire. That's not hitting CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all that. It's local. So get with your local business council. Sometimes your local city government, that might be too small. I would say the local business council, that's where your economic development and workforce development thought leaders live. That's where the conversation is. So tap into that conversation. Universities are also doing a lot of partnerships with the local community. So snoop around at your local university's website or career services center to see if there's any outreach going on. Sometimes some of those talks and programs and webinars are very, very helpful. They have sometimes free webinars on local hiring, local resources for building resumes and things like that would mirror some of the things that I've done some of these before. But that the local business council is asking anybody in the local area who's hiring to submit to their job board. So they have the local job boards. So things that you may not even see on LinkedIn, or you may not even find on the company pages or the newspapers, go to the business council. They're aggregating information for you. So take advantage of those resources, the local business councils.
Wow, that's such great input. And, you can re-listen to this segment if you didn't get all that, because I know, Julie, you just delivered a ton of fantastic information in a very short time. Let me mention one more thing. I know we're going to have to end this episode soon, but it wouldn't be good if we got off without me talking about this, how to do a Zoom interview. One thing I really have been noticing when I'm interviewing with companies to hire employees now is that potential employees, rather candidates, need to better prepare their initial responses on Zoom. It's funny about how this works, and with Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever platform you're using, somehow there's more of a spotlight on you. And so you need to get ready for that. You need to be able to say in less than 60 seconds something basic about your primary skill set or your interest in the job or what makes you a good candidate. And you need to prepare that. A lot of people that I've noticed in interviews I've been conducting collaboratively with business owners kind of stumble in that. And it's amazing. If you don't make a good impression in that context, you don't make a good impression. So I think it's really important that people go back and do their homework and practice their elevator speech, even though they're a candidate for a specific job. And, we assume that, well, because I'm applying for this job, they know what I can do, or they know I have those skills. No, the more you do a really good 45-second elevator pitch on Zoom when the camera's completely on you, the more chance you have to get the job. And conversely, if you don't do well, you're unlikely to get that position. So that's one thing you can all do that's really going to help your traction in getting employment. Agree, Julie?
Absolutely agree. And the way that I help my clients with any kind of interview prep like this is to, we script it out. We anticipate what the questions will be. Well, tell me about yourself. What are your greatest strengths? What about your skills for this job? Or tell me about a time when you fill in the blank. Or what about working with others? Script out those 45-second answers so that you have the content. Part of the reason people freeze up in any kind of interview, especially a Zoom, is that they don't have their content together and they're worried about how it's going to be delivered. So what you want to do is you want to separate those two pieces, script it out so you have the right content, practice it so that you have the delivery. And then once you're live on your Zoom call or your Teams call, what you want to do is you want to just relax and pitch it, just deliver it. You already practiced it. You know your content, you know how you want to say it, and you've got it in a nice shape. And relax and enjoy the conversation and go with that flow then, so that you're not worried about how to, what should I say or how should I say it? You do the homework.
Boy, we've got so much input for all of you. We could just do this episode and make it a whole day long, but unfortunately we can't do that. But I do want to say one last thing, and then we'll let you all go. I hope you've enjoyed this special episode. We're going to be talking about these things in much more depth with our callers and our guests over the next few episodes. But, I want to reach out to everybody. Julie and I talked about this before we did this episode, and we want to say to all of you that we're all anxious about what's going on. No one really knows what's going to happen. We see a upturn in cases now in the pandemic when we thought it was over, and everybody's kind of frightened and kind of worried about this and anxious. And you know what? It's okay to feel that way, because we are all feeling that way, and we're ultimately all in this together. And the more we react in a positive, collective way, the better it will be for us all.
Love it. Thank you, Joel, for being on this with me. This was a good one.
Well, thank you, Julie, for being America's career counselor and being the greatest. So, okay, we will be back with everyone soon. Take care and see you again on Career Lab.
Hey, listeners, don't underestimate the power of a well-written resume. And you could ask 100 resume writers how to write one, and you're going to get 100 different answers. The bottom line is mine work. Go to www.careerlabnow.com and download my resume pack. It's inexpensive, easy to follow, and chock full of samples that you are more than welcome to copy and paste from to get a resume that is well suited for today's market and reflective of your skills. Again, www.careerlabnow.com. Get that resume sharp as a pencil and download my resume pack and get it out to market. Good luck.